Hello, everybody, and welcome to Take Control ADHD. It's a podcast.
It's a podcast that we do about ADHD.
It is. I'm going to do that again. You know what? Let's do it again.
No, you should keep it.
You think? Okay, well, then it is a podcast about ADHD, and it's an ADHD podcast on True Story FM, and I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, I'm in the podcast.
We're stumbling toward podcasting today, and this is the end of a glorious series, Nikki. Oh,
Yes.
the series is over on self-compassion, and we thought today might be a good opportunity. We used to do this. I think we did this for a little while on a lot of our series that we did. We just did these kind of recap reflection episodes.
Yeah.
We haven't done that in a while. This one seems like it merits a bit of a look back. It was a long series.
Mm-hmm.
We had
An
a lot of
important
guests, an important one that appeared to resonate with folks. And we're doing all that so we can set up for laughs next week. We're talking improv and comedy next week, so stay with us. We'll get through a little more self-compassion, and then we're going to hang it up for a little while. I mean, we're going to try and remain self-compassionate, but
Well, right.
we're not going
It's
to talk about it.
We just stopped doing.
We're just going to stop being self-compassionate when the series ends. All right.
Right.
Before we do that, head over to TakeControlADHD.com. Get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show right there on the website or subscribe to the mailing list, and we will send you an email each time a new episode is released. You can connect with us on Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest at Take Control ADHD. But to really, really connect with us, join us on the ADHD Discord community. It's super easy to jump into the general community chat channel. Just visit TakeControlADHD.com/Discord, and you will be whisked over to the general invitation and log in. And if you're looking for a little bit more, particularly if this show has ever touched you or helped you understand your relationship with ADHD in a new way, we invite you to support the show directly through Patreon. Patreon is listener-supported podcasting for us. With just a few dollars a month, you can help guarantee that we continue to grow the show, add new features, and invest more heavily in the community. We have lots of things going on. As we record this, in fact, we just wrapped up tax study halls that came out for members of the community. Man, you've been doing so many taxes, Nikki. Holy cow, I see those notifications every day over the last weekend. It's been really, really great to see all those taxes getting done and accountability for all. So lots of awesome things going on. Just head over again to patreon.com/the ADHD podcast to learn more. Thank you for your support. You know what time of year it is? What time of podcast? Do you know what time of podcast it is, Nikki? It's my favorite time of podcast. It is, yeah.
Well, this is the podcast.
It is the podcast, but it is my favorite time because I get to talk about my favorite invisible nerd tool. You know what that is. It's
do.
TextExpander. It really is TextExpander. I love this thing so much. I still use it. They've been advertising on the show for I think going on 2 years, and I still use it every single day. Here's how it works. If there is a piece of text, any piece of text, a word, a sentence, a misspelling, anything that I do more than once, that's a signal that I need to add it to TextExpander. I keep my most used emails and phrases and text messages and URLs and so much more really in my TextExpander library. A snippet can include text and links and images and code and account numbers and phone numbers and addresses, whatever you want. And the trick is, for each one of the snippets in my library, I assign a unique abbreviation. Then I expand it. I can deploy the content I need with just a few keystrokes on any device across any apps I use. Just type the abbreviation for the snippet I'm looking for and boom, text expanded. You can get your whole team or family access to all the content they need to use every day. Just organize it by department or group and make sure all your snippets are used consistently wherever they are needed with a team account on TextExpander. This month's tip, though, is all about organizing snippets.
Oh, I love that.
What? You like that?
You're organizing snippets.
I am. I'm organizing snippets. I knew that would be kind of a trigger word for you. I think you're over there drinking your coffee, you're all quiet, and then I say the word organizing snippets, and you're all electric all of a sudden. Yeah. Well, once you get a large snippet library, it can start getting confusing to keep them all organized and categorized. I mean, you can use folders in TextExpander in the library to actually keep them all in one place, but I'm talking about like where you need them the most, like in your fingertips. And when I started using TextExpander, I chose the semicolon key as the key for in front of all of my snippets. So if I want the date stamp, I hit semicolon DS. And that expands to today's date. But once I got over, 100 snippets, and now I have hundreds and hundreds of snippets in my TextExpander library, I started getting kind of confused putting semicolon in front of everything. That's when I started using other characters in front of each major group. So my primary trigger is still a semicolon for my most used snippets, but now I use anything that involves personal communication, email addresses, phone numbers, they all start with an @ sign. Anything related to money and finance, so account numbers, routing numbers, anything in there, those all start with, I bet you can guess what that is. It's a $sign. And anything that involves dates and times starts with that semicolon. Anything that involves math starts with an equal sign, just like Excel formulas. It's that easy. TextExpander is available on Mac, Windows, Chrome, iPhone, and iPad. And for listeners of the ADHD podcast, you can get 20% off your first year of service. All you have to do is visit takecontroladhd.com/TextExpander. You will be whisked over to our page on their site where you can get started today. Again, if you get started now, you'll save 20% off your subscription. The way we work is changing rapidly. Make work the way your brain works by saying more in less time and with less effort using TextExpander. Our great thanks to the TextExpander team for sponsoring the ADHD podcast. We have some news.
Why don't you introduce our newest team member?
Oh, we have a new team member. As we continue to grow this community, we started thinking about how we needed to grow our team to support it. And we reached out to one of the members of our Discord server who has been, I mean, as I'm saying this, it's hard to introduce him without aligning him with the gifts that he uses to support this community. It's Brian, it's Brian. And he has been such a staple, Brian Brunell, in the community for so long. It just made sense to see if he would want to kick off the ranks of community moderator in our Discord server. He is such an amazing cheerleader. He is a welcome committee for new members. He is fantastic and expert in his support that he offers people when they need it. And, making his role in the community more official was just made so much easier because he was thrilled to hear it and to be invited to be a part of the team. So it just feels like such a wonderful match to get Brian in here working with Melissa to help continue to evolve this community and continue to offer all the great resources that that the community offers and connect people with what they need. So I'm thrilled that Brian's on board. We're all thrilled that Brian's on board, and he is the first official member of the TCA Discord Mod Squad. If you need him,
I like that.
I know. If you need anything, you can ask Brian or Melissa, or obviously me and Nikki as well over in Discord. You can find him. He is Brian M. Brunell on Discord, and I used the success baby emoji next to the Mod Squad, or maybe he did that himself. But I also posted the story of the success baby thing in the off topic.
That
was so good. If you're in the off topic channel, oh God,
Yeah.
It was so heartwarming that kid has grown
You'll
up.
have to put that in the show notes.
Yeah, we should do that. It's such an awesome
good.
story. So our awesome welcome to Brian. We're thrilled that you said yes. Thrilled that you said yes. So now we got to talk about the book club.
Yes, the ADHD book club is coming back next Wednesday, May 3rd. Enrollment opens for our next installment. We will be diving into one of my favorite books, Focused Forward by James Ochoa. It is such a great book, and I can't wait to explore the topics inside within a group setting. First time I've ever done this, so I'm very much looking forward to it. If you're interested in joining the ADHD book club, be sure to get your name on the wait list, and you'll be the first to know as soon as enrollment opens. You can find the wait list right now, or if we're open for enrollment, go over and enroll at takecontroladhd.com/book club to learn more.
Outstanding. All right. I think it's time we dig into it.
Yes.
We've put it off long enough, Nikki. Let's reflect.
the way I did this to get prepared is I actually went kind of chronological. So I kind of
Mhm.
looked at our episodes and thought, okay, what did I take from this? What did I take
Sure.
from this one? So that's sort of how it's set up. And I'll go ahead and start because the book that started this whole thing was the self compassion workbook, and that is by dun, 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 Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer. Uh, Kristen Neff has some great TED Talks and other resources on the website too. So definitely check it out. But the Mindful Self Compassion Workbook, a proven way to accept yourself, build inner strength, and thrive. Loved this book. It was recommended to me by a client of mine. It is also a book that I would like to add to the ADHD book club at some point because
It
there are a
seems
lot of,
only appropriate that that book
right?
be on the list. Yeah.
Yes, this is definitely on the list. It's got a lot of different exercises and things that we could do together as a group. So I think that in this first episode, it was really just, I think, the awareness of the components, the elements of self compassion that really struck with me because I never really looked at it more than just being self kind.
Mhm.
But then they put into this whole, it's not just about kindness, it's also about having this common humanity and being mindful of how you're feeling and not dismissing that feeling. And that was new to me.
Yeah. Well, and that was also when we started talking about the language we use about ourselves, right?
Hmm.
And that I feel like that's where we started the conversation, and it was for me personally a long downhill, like, uh, 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 s- you know, kind of brakeless bike ride downhill of realization that I talk to myself poorly, that I don't use the kind of language to myself that I use to my friends in need. And that just was continually reinforced with every single conversation we had over the 5 or 6 episodes that we did on self-compassion. And so that's where I sort of anchored on that episode because we also wrapped it in a conversation on kindness and humanity and mindfulness and those sort of core elements. But really, for me, it was about, oh my God, Pete, you
What are you
talk a good
doing?
game, yeah, but you don't really walk the talk in a lot of areas that feel completely outside of your control.
And
So
it's
that was
interesting
a big
because
deal
I
for
could
me.
tell. I mean, I could
Yeah.
physically see you changing. Your expression started to change. You
Well, it's
could
a
tell you were
bummer.
getting, yeah, you could tell. Like for people that watch the live stream, I could physically see something changing in you when
Yeah,
we started talking about this and how uncomfortable you were
for sure.
around it. And so, and I appreciate your honesty and I appreciate, and I'm sure our listeners do too, that, you're open to talk about why that's uncomfortable because it is for so many of us,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I hope so. And I will say just talking about it, just having that on the brain. I leave here and I would go talk about it with my wife and we talk about those experiences together. And it's been like a 6 week kind of ongoing discussion about, when good things, bad things happen, how do we reflect those things in the language that we use about our relationship to it. And so talking about it does work. I
Right.
think, I feel
Yeah.
better, or at least a little bit more practiced in using better
Hmm.
language toward myself than I did this first episode.
Hmm. Absolutely. I love that. I'm glad. The self compassion and shame episode, I think for me, it was a good reminder that, let's not sit in shame in silence.
Mhm.
I always go back to what you say that it doesn't survive in the light.
Shame hates the sun,
I know you always have to tell me that every single time. And I may not remember the exact words that you
but you get the
use,
feeling.
but I
Yeah.
get the feeling and I
Yep.
understand, what's going on there. And, we talk about as a coach, especially, there's a lot of conversation around self-compassion and shame in my everyday sessions, right? When I'm talking to people. And what's so interesting to me and such a privilege to witness is when someone is verbally processing what's going on and you can hear them starting to kind of beat themselves up But then when they're questioned, like, how do you know that that's what that person is thinking? How do you know? Right. And you start to kind of question it. They come to the conclusion themselves as they're talking through it that, wait a minute, maybe
Yeah.
this isn't a true story. Maybe I am um, going to the worst case scenario,
Hmm.
not exploring what if something else happened. Right. So I
Yeah.
think that was just a really interesting topic to talk about because I see it so much in my everyday coaching.
I think I think that one was interesting too because we brought shame around to the somatic experience of self-compassion. Like where do we
Hmm.
feel it when we're feeling negative in our bodies? And that's been something I've been trying to be more reflective of. Is like when I'm feeling that sense of self-doubt or self-loathing, do I feel it in my body somewhere? Do I have a stomach ache or do my joints hurt or do I have a sore throat? Does that get tight? Like those are the kinds of things that sort of manifest for me. And being able to connect those things as triggers that maybe my lived experience, my physical in body experience can be a trigger to an emotional thing that I haven't been able to see clearly, right?
Hmm.
It's like
Hmm.
it's like, sometimes when you eat, like if you are lactose intolerant, I don't know if you're who's lactose intolerant, but my understanding is you're lactose intolerant, you eat lactose, there will be some gap time before you get sick and you start feeling crummy. And for some people that's pretty short and some people that's kind of long, but eventually your stomach's going to hurt or something. I don't have that experience, I don't think. Maybe I do and I'm not aware of it. But uh but that physical experience tied to an emotional experience as a trigger is important to me, and I'm trying to be really
Yes,
thoughtful about that.
absolutely. Those are those warning signs that we need to
Yeah.
pay attention to.
Ugh.
Absolutely. Our interview with Dr. Sharon Celine. I
Yeah.
love this woman.
Well, she's
I love
lovely.
her. She's absolutely a gem. Always so happy to hear what she has to say. And her definition of perfectionism, talking about perfectionism, was so interesting to me. The way that she talked about how there's two kinds. There's that adaptive perfectionism. Per, ah, there's two kinds: the adaptive perfectionism, which is motivator. Can be a motivator,
Mhm.
productivity, persistence, and then there's this other thing that we see more often, and that's the toxic perfectionism with the negative self esteem, rigidity, and defensiveness. And I think just really like seeing that there's these two different kinds and that perfectionism, we carry it around like it's a badge of
Mhm.
honor, and it isn't. It's a sabotager.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think even the adaptive perfectionism, like I question a little bit. I think it's hard to see the where is it adaptive and where is it toxic? It feels like it's just all still one thing that gets in the way.
Mhm.
So I have more learning I think I need to do on that
Yeah.
because it's hard for me to see that point. And so that we always learn, right? We are always
Yeah.
learning, and it's something
Yeah.
to look at and say, okay, what is good enough?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, there were two pieces that I think were kind of partner pieces in that conversation that really stuck out to me. And the first one is like, what is your experience with compare and despair? Like you look at somebody
Hmm.
else who's in your field or doing kind of what you do, and looking at the public appearance of their experience of those things, and how do you avoid comparing yourself to them if your success is not exactly the same as their success?
Right.
And that's a form of self compassion, like a lack of self compassion that I think really struck me as something that I say. I've worked that into my vernacular. Like when I'm doing that, I can call it out, use words, and say, "Oh, compare and despair. I need to work on that." But the other side of that is the just one thing, right? How do you use just one thing to turn what seems impossible into a daily practice related to self-compassion, right? And we talk about like breaking down hard projects into their smallest atomic elements in order to get them
Hmm.
done, but she's using it in a little bit of a different a different context. What is the one thing that you can do that you can finish to your or to a potentially not perfect standard, but you can still call finished, and use that to, as my metaphor, the match in the darkness, to light up opportunity for you to continue to move forward without being so hard on yourself. And I really like that.
So
you know,
this could just be my memory because it sucks right now. Can we say that? Can we say
what
that word?
sucks?
Yeah,
Yeah.
without being like rated.
Oh yeah. No,
Okay.
you're fine.
Because you bringing that up, I forgot about that piece of the conversation, which makes me think this is why we need to listen to podcasts more than once.
Yeah.
I
Right.
recorded the podcast and I didn't remember that piece. Now that's my own issue, but still, it is such a good. I'm just glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
I forgot about that. And
Yeah.
just that one thing is a really important concept. And when you're talking about compare and despair, I did use her story about her skiing
Uh-huh.
with a couple of different people after we did the podcast. I shared it with I think it was coaching with Nikki that we do monthly, and I think I shared it with the GPS group too. And how not to look side to side because that's not getting you
Yeah.
anywhere.
Right.
But you keep looking forward because that's where you're going. And then when you stop and look back, you can see how far you've come.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That is
Huge.
so good.
Yeah. For
And I
sure.
think such an important message because I think so many people look at their past as such a negative thing, but now you
Yeah.
can look at it as no, look at how far I've come, and that's just beautiful. Love her.
Right. Where'd we go from there? I don't was that the did we go
Oh, we
straight to
went to
Casey?
no, we went to self-compassion with all of the feelings.
All the feelings.
It started out to be sort of an anxiety. We wanted
Yeah.
to talk about anxiety because both of us
Oh,
have
we're
it.
too good at that.
We're so good at that.
So we
Um,
expanded.
that
I
we
remember that
decided
now.
to do all the feelings. And my biggest takeaway for this, because it was we were recording the show at the same time that I was leading a group on overwhelm with ADHD, and this had come up in our group. The biggest takeaway for me was labeling what it is that you're feeling.
Mhm.
And I think it is so important to identify, how am I feeling about this? Why am I feeling this way? Talking about it with someone else to kind of process the information and kind of be able to sit with it. And I got to share a personal story um where this happened. So my daughter went to prom last week but didn't really go to prom.
Yeah.
She did all of like the stuff beforehand. So her date came over, gave her flowers. They had a corsage. She had a boutonniere. They got all dressed up. They took pictures in the park. They're gorgeous. They had dinner, but they didn't actually go to the prom.
Where did they go?
They didn't do anything. they
That
came.
was
They
it
came
that
home
was
after
it?
dinner. Yeah, it was just like a date. It was like a date, but
It was
they
a date.
both decided not to go to prom for whatever reason. I don't know. I can't figure out
Put
a
that put that
17-year-old.
prom money toward a better dinner at least.
Oh yeah, I
Proms are
mean,
expensive now.
I know they are. Well, in that evening, of course, everybody is posting their prom pictures of their daughters and right because
Mhm.
we have the daughters and the sons that are going to prom. So I'm seeing
Right.
all of these pictures and there was a group of girls that Paige was and it still is friends with from her high school and they were all together and they all went together. And it bothered me
What did?
seeing the picture.
Why?
That's what I had to label.
That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, I had to sit with it. And this is exactly where this is a very good example of where I had to label this feeling of what is it that I'm bothered by. And I figured it out after kind of thinking about it. I think what bothered me is I felt like she was missing out on something with not being with her friends
Hmm.
because she doesn't go to high school with them anymore. She does online school. So she doesn't have the same
Sure.
relationship as she used to. And
Right.
so there was a piece of me that felt like, oh, she should have been in that picture. And then there was another picture of all of the moms standing next to the girls. And I know these girls. I've known them since they were in
Yeah.
elementary school, and I know all of their moms really well.
Yeah.
And there was a piece of me that's like, I should have been in that picture with my daughter.
So, yeah. Did your daughter have any of those same feelings?
No, because this is the thing. This is why,
Yeah.
like,
That was her
because
choice. It was a conscious
it was her
choice.
choice, and she could have gone because any one of those girls would have invited her and added them as her guest. They
Mhm.
weren't going with dates, it was just going with girls. So she could have gone if she wanted to. They would have welcomed her. So
Mhm.
she even said to me, like, it's not like I'm being left out. I wasn't being left out.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter what
It
she
doesn't
thinks.
matter. Right.
It's what
Lizard
I'm
brain takes
feeling.
over. Right.
I was
Yeah.
feeling sad. I was feeling like not I had anxiety around, oh my gosh, does she have any friends? Like, I had all of these things. And this is what anxiety does, right? It
Yeah.
makes
Right.
you think about something's been triggered, and I'm feeling really bad about it, and I have a lot of worry around it, and I seriously had to, like, think about it, label it, and then figure it out and say it out loud. Like, this is what it is. Not
But
her problem,
did
it's
you say it
mine.
to her? Did you say it to her?
Well, she'll probably hear it on the podcast. I did ask her,
Yeah.
how she felt. I'm like, "Are you okay? Like, how do you feel when you see this picture?" And, she just said what I already told you. Like,
Yeah.
she could have gone. It wasn't
Yeah.
and she wants to go next year. She really didn't want to go to prom. And even the person that asked her to do the dinner, he first asked her if she wanted to do the pictures and
Mhm.
everything, and that if she wanted to go to prom, he would get tickets, but he really didn't. And she was like, I don't care if we go or not. And he's an introvert, so he didn't really want to go because he was
Yeah.
an introvert and he doesn't like the whole
But
social
he's able
scene.
to have a nice date out of it.
He wanted, yeah,
Yeah.
and they're really good friends. They don't like each other. It wasn't
Mhm.
romantic. And we were also thinking that that's probably why he asked her in the first place, was because there wasn't any pressure,
Yeah.
because they're
Yeah.
really just friends. But
Sure.
anyway, that was a total side story. But I just think it's important, like, you got to figure out what your feelings are. And
Yeah.
I decided not to look at social media for the rest of the weekend because it bothered
Yeah.
me, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, just as an aside, and I'm not advocating this for anybody else, but I can tell you my experience with the world has been vastly better since I straight up deleted my Instagram account.
Yeah.
Uh, I just not even
There is
represented
something
on the
to that,
platform.
Pete. I
Yeah.
totally agree.
I think for me, the big takeaway is just continuing to talk about how all these emotions come in a zigzag, not a straight line, and they loop to loop, and they come back and bite you when you think you're finished with them. And continuing to be aware of that and remind yourself that emotions, difficult emotions in particular, are anything but linear is, wow, just something I have to continue to say because I'm
Yes.
surprised every time.
Yes. I know.
Yep.
It's a good reminder.
So,
Our interview with Casey Dixon, again, another guest
mhm,
that I absolutely adore. And I always get to see her once a year at the ADHD conferences, and it's always such a joy. Uh, you know, she had some great perspective around coaching, around high achievers, and how self compassion, the lack of it, can kind of get into burnout and all of the different things that she was saying. But I've got to tell you, every time she comes on, at least the last two times that she's come on, we talk about this permission to disappoint others. And it
yeah,
just hits me so hard. And I talk about it in my personal life with my friends and my family. And I also talk about it in my professional life with my clients. And, it's okay to disappoint someone. And I love that she says, who can I disappoint today and still feel good about myself? What a great
yeah,
question.
yeah. It's
And
really
then I
good.
also like her take 20% off of your to-do list and see what happens.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
great.
and that was when we started talking about our new favorite organizing tool, our task tool, Tick, and how it has a won't do list. And I've started dragging things to the won't do list. And I love it so much because you can't even check off the box. It turns into a square through the box. Like there's nothing you can do. It's grayed out. You can see, oh, today I won't do this thing. And you can't interact with it. It's my favorite thing in the world. So
That's funny.
I did not know how delighted I would be with that feature, but it turns out I'm pretty delighted.
Yes. Yes, for sure.
And then we wrapped up with a good pivot.
Stop, drop, and roll, baby.
Yeah, that's right. You got to roll with the punches.
Stop, drop, and roll. Pivot.
Yeah. Pivot.
Pivot.
Yep. And I think we learned in the chat that a lot of people have real problems with the Gellers. Monica
Yes.
and Ross. That was
Yes.
that was a thing I did not expect out of that conversation, is just how many people have issues with Monica in particular and Ross.
Which is so funny and I love, and it's so
I
ADHD
know.
like to go and look at the chat after the recording, and the whole thing is about the cast of Friends.
Yeah.
You gotta love it.
I know. My favorite. My favorite.
But yeah, that was definitely a fun show, and definitely need to listen to it. So we have some listener feedback.
Yeah, we had some people who said some things about the show. Do you want to take turns? You want to swapsies?
Sure. Well, one of the things that is on here, this was a member of GPS. They recommended a book from Brene Brown, which we love Brene Brown, and it is called Atlas of the Heart. And I've been reading it. I just started it. And one of the things that I've already learned, which really wraps into what you were saying about feelings not being linear, is disappointment is connected to fear, expectations, like she really digs into like, this is what you're feeling. And this is all of the other feelings that are attached to that feeling. So it just kind of helps you really understand what's going on. And I haven't gotten very far in the book, but I definitely love it and recommend that people look at it. And then that was from a GPS member.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. What else do we got?
Well, we had this listener who said, I love this series. I will say it here as I say it everywhere. This is the best ADHD podcast out there for me. If I could afford GPS and all of it, I would do it all. I've listened to ADHD podcasts for years and keep coming back here. I even had a coaching call from Nikki 2 years ago. And when I decided to join through Patreon, it did not disappoint. It is 100% the bargain of the century. You're lovely.
Aww.
Thank you so much. That's very,
nice.
very kind coming out of that series. This is a longer one. You want to do this one? You want me to do this
I
one?
want you to do it.
Oh, okay.
You got the vocals.
All right, here we go. Taking Control, the ADHD podcast, is so far and away my favorite podcast that choosing between episodes is generally an impossible task. That said, the Self-Compassion series exceeded even the lofty expectations that Nikki and Pete have established with their amazing work on the show. As a podcast listener, it was certainly difficult at times as they shined the spotlight directly on uncomfortable emotions, problematic behaviors, and thought patterns, and ongoing struggles that I'm constantly fighting against in my daily life. As someone who is actively trying to better understand and manage my ADHD, though, that difficulty was absolutely worth it because every tug at my emotions was also crystal clear proof that the problem is not me or unique to me, and reassurance that there's a whole bunch more folks struggling the same way on the same stuff, and that to some extent, at least we're all in this together. At a minimum, there are wonderful people out there who can empathize with me, and as a Discord community member, I know that many of them are willing to share their vulnerability to help me with my own. Special over-the-top praise for Pete throughout this series. Nikki did a great job coaching some of the sharing out of him, but one ADHDer to another, hearing Pete share thoughts and struggles that could have been pulled directly from my own brain was deeply touching and helped me to humanize myself and the struggles on these topics to a degree that I wasn't previously capable of. Amen, and thank you. Thank you for that insightful comment, and I appreciate the compliment. I'm right there with you.
He saw what he heard what I saw.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
That's great.
Another listener, I struggled with what to say about the self-compassion series. Tell me about it. I was going through some stuff personally that made me feel convicted. I'm going to say conflicted. I spent time crying, but it helped me heal. It helped me make the avoided phone call. I'm holding on to talking to myself like a 3-year-old with a skinned knee. Oh,
Oh.
hallelujah.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
that's
so great.
really
That came
wonderful.
from Sharon Celine, right?
Yep, that was Sharon, and what a great. I can't believe neither one of us brought that up. That was such a great, a great way to talk to yourself, specifically when we're already talking about how hard we are on ourselves. I
Yes.
love the visual of that 3-year-old with a skin knee. That's wonderful. The self-compassion series is another home run from Nikki and Pete and their guests. I heard so many things that resonated that I gave up trying to write them all down and practiced letting go of my own need for perfection by simply listening and absorbing without judging myself for not being able to capture everything in a neat, tidy little note-taking system. Very meta. So thanks to you two and this community for continuing to remind me that we are much more than our own limiting beliefs. They still pop up and are a constant companion, but I'm learning to recognize them as my annoying friends instead of trying to get rid of them altogether. And that change in perspective has been huge.
Mic
Oh,
drop.
that's so wonderful, right?
That's awesome. That's
That's
great.
really, really wonderful.
Thank you, everyone, for your
So,
feedback.
yeah, so relieved that this hit home for people listening as much as it did for me kind of experiencing it. I think that's my big takeaway. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Anything else?
everyone.
I think we're good, right?
I think we're good. We're closing up shop on self-compassion for now.
That's right. For now.
I'm
yes.
sure it will come back. Yes.
Oh, yes, we will.
Well, in every show, we hope that there's some self-compassion intertwined in it.
And we sure appreciate all of you for downloading and listening to this show and for submitting your feedback. That's really, really great. Thank you for your time and attention. And don't forget, if you have something to contribute about the conversation, we're heading over to the Show Talk channel in our Discord server, and you can join us right there by becoming a supporting member at the deluxe level or better. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll see you right back here next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.